conditional grant schools. MST conditional grant schools are those schools that receive resources from the MST conditional grant. In this case, we have Davidson Intermediate, we have Clackanang, we have Marulana, and we also we have Mubela, and we also have Kulasizwe that are MST grant schools. But also in the pilot, we have full ICT schools, and those schools are Chief Luthuli Primary number 2. We have Tsepisa, Rev Mapetu, and also Klamatlama. So presenters will also touch on resources and all that, so I'm not going to waste time on that. So just to give a background that these are the schools, 9 schools are selected in our district, and they were identified by head office, and the criteria which was used is MST conditional grant schools and full ICT schools. And these schools are supported by these people that form part of the district project management team. So Davidson Intermediate and Clackanang are supported by Duke Chope, Mutsidisi Molotsi, Busisiwe Skobane, Chief Luthuli number 2, and Marulana are supported by Estelle Van Arts, Hilda Moarane, and Mary Ribane, and Ngubela Tsepisa, Rev Mapetu, it's Monica, Nakedi, and Pepi. Kulasizwe, Klamatlama, they are supported by Clemens, Sharita, and Matladi. So by now, these faces or these names are familiar because in once or twice, the support team has visited your school to support you. Colleagues, I am going to end there so that I don't take time for the presenters, and I am going to go back to the program and allow a foundation phase to start with their presentation. And CD and Estelle, I hope you are ready, and I know that you are ready. I'm just going to stop sharing my slides now so that you are able to share your slides.
Thank you, Pepe. It's Estelle speaking. I'm just going to see if I can upload from my side. We've been having load shedding, but we've got backups if I'm struggling.
Okay.
Right, it seems to be loading.
Okay.
I'm just giving it a few minutes. I can see that it is loading on my side.
Yeah.
While we are waiting for it to load nicely, I would like to greet everyone and welcome you to this meeting. I'm going to take you through the first part of the foundation phase presentation. Then I'm going to hand over to Tsidi, and then I will also be handling the assessment part later on. So I'm going to move to the outline of the presentation. So we're going to just give a brief introduction. And as you said, we're not going to go into detail because this is not a training session on coding and robotics. It's just an introduction of our lesson plans. We're going to look at the resources, the teaching of coding and robotics. We're going to look at the ATPs for grade R and 1, and also the lesson plans for grade R and 1, and then at assessment. So if we look at coding and robotics, I'm going to just discuss the introduction briefly. It's a subject that helps our learners function in a digital and information-driven world, and to solve problems through logical and computational thinking. If we look at the specific aims, it's to prepare learners to solve problems, to think critically, to work in groups and to work creatively, to function in a digital and information-driven world, and to apply digital and ICT skills to solve problems, and then also to equip our learners for meaningful and successful living in our changing world. As we all know, everything is going onto computers now, and even our meetings are digital. So we are equipping our learners to adapt to this digital world that we're living in. The focus of the content area, I'm going to just go back to the little house, then you're going to see what it is. 2 slides back. If you look at the little house there, you can see the roof says coding and robotics. And in each little of the windows under the roof, you can see the different pillars. Those are the 5 pillars or strands that coding and robotics consists of. It's the pattern recognition and problem solving, our algorithms and coding, and then robotic skills, internet and e-communication skills, and then our application skills. And you will see that it's all on a foundation of computational thinking and engineering and design process. So basically, that is what coding and robotics consists of. And that's just what that slide actually said there. Sorry, someone, okay. So that you can see the 5 strands there and the foundation that it's on. So if we're looking into more detail with each of the strands, for pattern recognition and problem solving, learners must be able to describe patterns and relationships using symbols and grids. And then for algorithms and coding, they must identify and analyze solutions for specific basic functions. And then robotic skills, they must be able to create logical steps that robots can follow, and they must be able to build basic electrical circuits. Then for internet and e-communication skills, we're going to teach them about safety around digital platforms, basic networking and internet, and the safe use of web browsers. Then application skills will be the use of digital devices, and then text editing and application. And then if we look at the requirements, the time allocation for coding and robotics in grade R2 will be 1 hour per week. And then in grade 3, it will be 2 hours per week. And then page 15 of the draft policy document shows the time allocation for each of the strands for all 4 of the terms. Here is a suggestion by the Provincial Education Department. They say that the success of the implementation, and I agree with this, will be determined by the school's readiness and the commitment of the school. At a bare minimum, the learners should be exposed to coding and robotics in exciting ways so that they are excited about what they are going to learn and enthusiastic. Bare minimum would be 30 minutes per week given to coding and robotics. And then a suggestion was to take 10 minutes from the different subjects, excluding FAL, so that you have your 30 minutes. And then if you have a rotational model, you will have to adapt that. So if you're not rotating, it will be 30 minutes per week. If you are rotating, you'll adapt it to suit your rotational model. And then delivery of curriculum must be learner-paced. Before I move on, our piloting schools will have to include coding and robotics on their timetables. And we are all submitting our school readiness documents for 2022 during this 4th term. So I'm asking all our schools to make sure that you do include coding and robotics on your timetables and that you have it ready for submission when you submit your school readiness files. Then now we're going to look at our resources. The little top circle there. The school must have an email and a cloud storage facility. because you will be receiving new information that might be emailed or it can be shared on a digital platform. And our teachers need to be trained on the subject. Our learners will need to have a textbook or a workbook or e-books and coding and robotics kits and tablets. Our teachers will have to have a variety of reference books or e-books, charts and brochures, etc. And they will have to have access to the internet so that they can download relevant information. The role of the school is to ensure that the necessary tools, devices and materials are available for the teaching and learning and assessment. Here, the LTSM coordinator will have to play a role in ensuring the procurement of the necessary LTSM. The school must also subscribe to a minimum of 2 or more subject-related magazines. And they must have a well-equipped lab for the learners so that they can do the practical part of coding and robotics. The role of the SMT. The SMT needs to ensure that it's included, coding and robotics is included in the school budget. And the budget must not only cater for the hardware and everything, but also for the consumables to be replenished. The budget must make provision for software licensing and as well as breakage and maintenance on all our equipment that we're going to be using and internet activity, etc. For coding, our requirements will be free open source software for block-based coding, and then code cards with basic coding instructions. And for robotics, the requirements will be all the basic components like your switches, your batteries, your wires, etc. I'm not going to read through all of that. You can refer to the slide later. And then our basic mechanical components like wheels and pulleys and gears, etc. I'm going to show you some pictures of some of these things. There you can see some LED lights and little switches and motors and resistors. I'm not going to read through all the computer hardware specification according to the DBE. You can go through this at your leisure when you get the presentation, but there is the specifications and also the software specifications that you will need for implementing coding and robotics. Right, then we are moving on to teaching coding and robotics. I'm mainly going to focus here on the grade R teacher and what should be provided by the grade R teacher. Our grade R teachers must provide, and I think they know this because this applies to all other subjects, they must provide routine and structured as well as free play. Here it will be related to coding and robotics activities that the learners can do that will be enjoyable and manageable. And the teacher must also provide a range of resources for routines, for structured and free play and activities to help the grade R learners acquire the important skills that they are going to need in grade 1 for coding and robotics. Then if we look at the engineering and design processes, I'm going to just look at the last 3 points there. The engineering and design process stands for the IDMEC, stands for investigate, design, make, evaluate and communicate. And this forms the backbone of the subject and it should be used when you plan all your lessons. The learners should be exposed to a problem or a need or an opportunity as a starting point. And then they should engage in a systematic process to allow them to develop solutions, to solve the problems or to rectify design issues and satisfy needs. The investigation process involves finding out more about the context of a problem and then looking at or evaluating existing products and their key design aspects and performing practical tests to develop an understanding of that product and its fitness for purpose. In other words, does the product do what it is supposed to do? Learners should be provided with opportunities to develop informed opinions that can help them make compromises and value judgments. Investigation can happen at any point in the design process. Computational thinking, it is a set of problem-solving methods that involve expressing problems and their solutions in a way that a computer can understand and execute. It's a dynamic process that consists of the following 4 steps: decomposition, that's the breaking down of the problem, then pattern recognition, abstractions, and then algorithm design. Next is a video clip that I'm not going to play now. You will be receiving the presentation. We do not have time to play it. You can look at it at your leisure. So I'm moving on to the second section of the presentation, where we are going to look into detail into the ATPs and the different lesson plans. And I'm going to hand over to CD now to take us through that.
Okay, thank you so much, Estelle. From this slide, let's move on to the next slide. Our focus is going to be on overview for grade R to 1, as well as the ATP or grade R to 1. Colleagues, we are saying in the coding and robotics curriculum is organized in strengths. And when we talk about the strengths, this is exactly what Estelle was alluding to. This is what Estelle was alluding to, that is the content areas. Strengths integrates the content from the different subject areas where possible and appropriate. Topics in the overview shows progression, and they also show increasing in complexity from year to year, from grade to grade. And you will notice, colleagues, that as much as some topics show continued progression, as we unpack the overview, as much as some of the topics show continued progression and increasing in complexity from year to year, other topics, they cease at some stage. This does not mean they are not important, but rather it is as a result of the integration. Now let us look at the overview for grade R and grade 1 and see where exactly is this progression as well as the increase in complexity. Now, under the first trend, that is pattern recognition and problem solving, in grade R, we are saying here learners should be taught how to identify different patterns. Pattern recognition, patterns repeating up to 2 times. They should be able to complete a pattern with a minimum of 2 repetitions. I'm sorry. And in grade 1, it's pattern recognition, patterns repeating up to 3 times. In grade R, we said 2 times. Then here they should be able to complete a pattern with a minimum of 3 repetitions, and debugging in a sequence. It's 2 patterns and 3 repetitions, creating patterns. Let's move on to the next slide, please, Estelle. We're still focusing on progression and increasing complexity under algorithms. And here we're saying here in grade R, we will be focusing on the introduction of what computers are. Learners should be able to identify computing devices. They should be able to decompose. They should be able to do sequencing. And in grade 1, we are focusing on block-based programming interface. We are introducing block movement, that is forward, backward, right, left, 10 around, 10 back, and all those other directions. Let's move on to the next slide, please, on robotics. When you look at this overview as well, yes, when you look at this overview continuation, we are saying here progression still is reflected there, and the increase in complexity under robotics. I'm sorry, I'm disturbed by these latecomers. Introduction here in grade R, we are doing the introduction of robots, introduction of input and output, allowing the control of robots, and the progression in grade 1. Learners will be taught how to make a robot mask using patterns. They will be taught how to program a robot and also to identify basic colors, right? And our next slide on internet and e-communication, we are saying here, still progression and increased complexity is also highlighted there. Introduction to privacy under grade R, introduction to personal details. Learners will be introduced to identification of cards, and in grade 1, the focus will be on introducing the concept of connectivity, internet, that is working online and offline, logging in online, as well as the introduction to the website. Next slide, please, Estelle. The final strand, that is focus, then will be on application skills. What is it that we want to develop in the learners regarding the strengths? We are saying in grade R should be taught how to switch a device on and off. They will be introduced. We'll be doing the introduction and the use of user interfaces on digital devices, introduction and working on a digital device. What is an application, what an application does. And in grade 1, we're introducing a drawing or graphics application, introducing the user interface of the drawings, as well as the introduction and the use of basic drawing and coloring tools. Now, colleagues, I just want to emphasize to say, as much as we are talking about all these trends, when we get into the ATPs, we will see when is each trend going to be taught. Now, let me not jump prior to the slide, but focus on the slide that is now reflected, right? Hold that. Right. Now, here we are talking about the ATPs. And now we're focusing on the structure of the ATP. We are saying the ATPs are the same across the subject. Under term 1, in term 1 is divided into 10 weeks. In each week, there is 1 hour that is allocated for coding and robotics in grade R1 and 2. And for grade 3, we are allocating 2 hours. There is also a topic and a content to be taught per week. Now, you'll realize as we continue with the presentation that the strengths, topics are used, strengths, the term strengths, the term topics, and the term content area are used interchangeably. So please, colleague, don't allow these terminologies to confuse you. When we talk about topics, in some instances, we'll be referring to the content area, and in some instances, we'll be referring to the strengths, right? May we move to the next slide, please? Right, now let's look at the ATPs. We are saying here, each strength will be taught in a particular week. But now, as I unpack the strengths, you'll realize that some of the strengths will be taught in more than 1 week. But now, if it appears like, for instance, under pattern recognition and problem solving, pattern recognition and problem solving will be taught from week 1 to week 3. And from there, in term 1, that will be it about pattern recognition and problem solving. Can I just take this opportunity also to emphasize to you colleagues that please let us do justice for each and every strand, knowing that when each strand is taught, then chances for us to go back to that strength will be very limited. As much as we are saying the strengths will continue integrating with other topics, but now we need to make sure that we do justice on each and every strength. Now, under pattern recognition and problem solving, week 1, we are saying we focus on identification of different patterns. Learners will be taught how to identify different patterns. And here we are saying learners should be able to repeat a pattern for up to 2 times. And examples that is included there is that learners can be given a pattern that is repeated up to 2 times. And here we are talking about the very same coding cards. Coding cards can be presented in front of the learners, and you give card each pattern accordingly, and learners will be requested to copy the very same card, and that is under week 1. And again, under week 1 on identifying different patterns, we see there that it will continue with identifying the same different patterns. And here, the example that we have captured there is that learners are presented with simple patterns made with physical objects or pictures, and they have to create, describe, and to complete their own patterns. And this will be done in week 1 as well as in week 2. May we please move to the next slide? Then this is continuation again, as I've indicated earlier, that pattern recognition and problem solving will be taught in week 1, week 2, as well as in week 3. And the content there is very specific to say we are still focusing on patterns repeating up to 2 times in grade R, minimum of 2 repetitions, and examples of activities that the learners can be engaged in is that learners can be given an opportunities to create a basic pattern and let a friend replicate the pattern. And here we are now involving peer reflection on the design. And this also takes us back to the methodologies that Estelle alluded to earlier when she was talking about that little house, indicating your design process, right? And in week 4, we are now focusing on algorithms and coding. And here we are introducing yeah. May I request someone to quickly admit the people from that side, colleagues from that side? This is really interfering with my presentation.
Apologies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here now, learners are taught to identify computing devices, examples that can be done with the activities that can be done with the learners here. Learners are shown pictures of computing devices where they need to identify those specific devices. And we continue with introduction to decomposition. We give them step-by-step instructions. Remember, colleagues, algorithms is about giving instructions, is about instructions. Maybe simply put how to make tea, that falls under your algorithms. Then examples again, under sequencing, learners may be asked to split up daily activities into step-by-step instructions like brushing teeth and all that. And in this regard, we can even, in grade R, you can even think of the pictorial daily program that offers them an opportunity to do sequencing using those pictures, where now they will follow various steps and a particular sequence. May we move to the next slide, please? The next slide is on robotics skills. Then here we are saying these strands will be done in week 6. Can I then also remind colleagues that remember that you are expected to start with the implementation. As much as we are mediating the ATPs for term 1, and we are well aware that now we are in term 4, this is the ATP that you are encouraged to utilize, because now we cannot start with term 4 ATPs when we didn't do anything on term 1, term 2, and term 3. So to alleviate the confusion, please be reminded that these are the annual teaching plans that you are expected to start implementing as we speak. Now, under robotic skills, we are saying introduction of input and output, allowing the control of robotics. This is what learners will be taught, and the examples of activities that learners can do, television remote control, those are the resources that can be used. And here learners will be expected to explain in their own ways what a robot is, and they will also be expected to draw or to create simple robots, and they will be asked questions where they will be expected to respond to those specific questions. So this is what is expected to be done with the learners in week 6. Then under the internet and e-communication, under the internet and e-communication, we are saying here, I don't see anything that is reflected there, but now this will be done with the learners in week 7. And here we are doing the introduction to privacy with the grade R's, introduction to personal details, introduction to identification of cards. And here learners can be given an opportunity to complete a template identifying a specific card. May we move on to the next slide, please? wonder what happened here. It's not showing, but on my thing is showing. All right. Then grade R continues. Now we are on, I think I did this one, Estelle, the applications. All right, yes, applications, yes, here we are continuing using interfaces on digital devices, and applications will be done in week 9, and it will continue through to week 10. And the focus here, learners continue using interfaces on digital devices, and the examples that can be of activities that can be done in the classroom here. Learners identify 3 different applications and what they are used for. The examples there, they will be exposed to the mouse, your keyboards, and all other relevant devices pertaining to applications. All right. Then let's move on to grade 1 overview. The ATPs for grade 1. Now, colleagues, you need to realize, you will then realize that the approach is the same. The only different will be what needs to be covered, as well as when is that particular content needs to be covered. And under your pattern recognition and problem solving, this should be delivered in 1 hour, within a period of 1 hour, and we are allocating that 1 hour for 1 week. Here, learners identify different patterns. The following concept for pattern recognition and problem solving are introduced. Continue pattern recognition, and as we have indicated earlier, patterns repeating up to 3 times for the grade 1s, and examples that can be used in class. Learners may be given a worksheet with sequence consisting of 2 complete sets, and they need to complete their 3rd set. Let's move on to, I'm not going to take all those activities one by one, but I think as you engage with the presentation as well as referencing to the draft, then you'll be able to get a clearer understanding of what needs to be done in the classroom. Then here under pattern recognition and problem solving, once more, we said it will be done in week 1 as well as week 2, and time allocation there is 1 hour, and we are debugging in a sequence, and it's a continuation of the same thing that we did in week 1. And remember, colleagues, that one best way to make sure that the learners are fully equipped with these strengths, it is when we allow time allocation to take its course, and also when we allow ourselves to ensure that all the activities are done repeatedly. We cannot just move quickly on one activity and expect the learners to master their skill. Then the example here that is indicated there, we are saying learners are given a set of sequences on a worksheet. I've indicated that one, and also they need to identify the incorrect sequence. So you give them what belongs, and you also allow them to identify that which doesn't belong to a particular sequence. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Is continuation of pattern recognition and problem solving. And here, time allocation for this introduction of creating patterns, we are allocating 30 minutes for this one. And this will be done in week 1, week 2, as well as in week 3. And the topics focus there is introduction to creating patterns. They continue pattern recognition. They continue to complete a pattern, and they create a basic pattern with at least 3 steps, components, and or components, and let a friend replicate the pattern. So it is more of a collaborative work. It is more of problem solving. It is more of critical thinking as well. Right, let's move on to the next slide, please. Then here, our focus is on pattern recognition. Our focus is on robotics skills. And remember, robotic skills also forms part of our 5 strengths, or forms part of our 5 content areas. And this will be done in week 3. And here, what skill are we developing learners on? Here, learners should be able to make a robot mask using patterns, and time allocation for this topic is 30 minutes, and examples that can be used
in class, the activities, learners can be given an opportunity to color in a color by number mask, and the mask will be used in week 6 for the robotics activity. Now, I think we are now able to see continuity as well as increased complexity as we continue with our ATP. Next slide, please, Estelle. Then we are continuing with robotics. Again, we are saying this trend will be taught in week 4 as well as in week 6. And the basic instruction and commands for a robot are done with the learners in this case, and the time allocation is 1 hour. What is it that the learners are taught? They should be taught how to program a robot, and they will be taught basic color identification and the example of activities that learners can do in the class. I'm going to focus on the very last one, that is the robot needs to be taken through a maze to pick and drop toy of the same color. Remember when we spoke about different skills and when we spoke about different content, we indicated the different directions to say learners will be taught how to make, learners will be taught how to make a robot, and that robot should be able to display or to demonstrate different movements. It should be able to go forward, backward, to make turns, and this will include the instructions. And I think, colleagues, you are able to see the flow. And after making a robot, now you come to algorithms and coding. Remember, I've indicated that algorithms, simply put, that is giving instructions and following specific steps. Now, after making that robot, now they come to the following concept, and that is, they come to the following strength, that is algorithms and coding. They should be able to give their robot instructions, and they should be able to follow specific steps. The following concepts have to be revised, and time allocation for algorithms and coding is 1 hour, and this should be done in week 4. The concepts are sequencing, block-based programming interface, and we introduce block movements, as I've indicated, going forward, and you also indicate how many times forward, how many times backward, how many times as they give the particular robot that they shall have created some instructions. And here the examples that can be used in the class: learners complete a basic code sequencing activity on an online application. Now we are talking about the grade 1s. Remember, it's a build up. We shall have introduced all these resources and we shall have mediated the resources. Now, when it comes to algorithms in week 4, they will be expected now to sequence the particular and also to do the activity online. Right. Let's move on to internet and e-communication. Then, I think this is more or less the same as I've indicated. It falls under algorithm and coding and concept. I think here, colleagues, please bear with us. The slide is erroneous. There are some errors on the slide. The slide is supposed to indicate robotics skills. Robotics. Oh yeah, that's it. That's the correct slide. The following, the following algorithm and coding concepts are introduced, and time allocation for this strength is 1 hour. And what exactly are we introducing? We're introducing block movement, turn right, turn left, make a U-turn and all that, construct a program using movement blocks, and the examples of activities that learners can be engaged in is as indicated there. It is no different from what I've just indicated earlier when I was talking to the previous slide. May we move on to internet and e-communication? E-communication. Yes, and now here under internet and e-communication, the strengths must be done again. Time allocation for this strength for week 7 is 1 hour, and what exactly are we focusing on. The following internet and e-communication concepts are revised for 1 hour, and here learners will be taught on more on digital security, and following are the concepts that will be introduced to the learners: the concept of connectivity, working online and offline, logging in online. As much as we've indicated that on the previous slide, we've indicated that then they will be expected to engage in an activity of logging in. Remember that the slide will come first, but as much as it's coming first, it will be done. I'm sorry. It will be done in week 8. Now, week 7, we are focusing on the internet and e-communication for a period of 1 hour, and there is a progression in terms of the strengths as well as the delivery of content. And the last strength for our coding and robotics in grade 1 under the ATPs will be your applications. And in applications, we are saying this will be done in week 8, and time allocated for this strength is also 1 hour. And what is it that learners, what skill are learners develop on here? That learners should be able to switch digital devices on and off, and here they will use interfaces on digital devices, and the following application skill concepts are also introduced: drawing or graphics application, and the example of the activity that learners can be engaged in. Learners can be engaged with the graphics or drawings application, and they may be given opportunities to draw a picture using a pencil or a brush. You remember when we started, we said learners must be given ample opportunities to use real objects. So there we can see your pencil and your brush coming in, and these are familiar resources. Continuing with the internet, next slide please, Estelle. Continuing with the internet and e-communication, we are now on week 9. And here we are saying the following application skills concepts will be introduced. And again, for this strand or this topic, we are also allocating 1 hour per week. And this will be done in week 9. Here now, we are introducing and using basic drawing and coloring tools, and the activities that learners can be engaged in is this one of graphics or drawings. When you look at the nature of the activities, these are familiar activities, but as much as we are saying they are familiar activities, obviously the focus will be different because now we'll be teaching coding and robotics. May I then request colleagues that as much as we'll be exposing them in the known or the familiar activities, we need to take into consideration content that is going to be focusing specifically on internet and on coding and robotics, and specific to internet and e-communication. And for week 10, which is the last week under internet and e-communication, we are also allocating 1 hour, and the example of activities, learners may be given opportunities to use the line tool to draw basic shapes. Sis Pepe, I hope I'm not interfering with your time. I'm still on time. I'm trying not to waste any time.
Okay,
right?
Yes, carry on to the
Yes,
maybe at 1:30.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, remember when Estelle was sharing the presentation outline with you colleagues, she has indicated that as much as we are focusing on foundation phase, for the sake of this presentation, as well as for the sake of time, our focus will be mainly on grade R ATPs, grade R overview, as well as grade R and grade 1 overview, as well as ATPs, and we'll also take you through the lesson plan. So with the slides regarding your grade 2 and grade 3, I'm not going to camp on those slides. I will just mention 1 or 2 things and we'll move on. I just want to highlight the most important aspects of things. Remember when we've indicated that as much as some topics show continued progression and increase in complexity, other topics they cease at some stage, and that the ceasing is not because the topics are not important, but it is simply because of integration. The very same point applies also in grade 2 and grade 3. And when you look at the structure of the ATP, when you look at the progression as well as the increase in complexity, you'll see it comes out very clearly. Like I said, I'm not going to deliberate more on your grade 2 as well as grade 3 content, but maybe let us just take, for instance, this very first slide indicating week 1, and week 1 for pattern recognition and problem solving, we are allocating 1 hour, but as we have indicated, we said for grade 3, time will differ. Grade 3 is allocated 2 hours. So the same applies with pattern recognition and problem solving, and content that needs to be taught. When you go to your draft document on page 56, you will see it is nicely unpacked. Here the focus will be on revision of some concepts on pattern recognition and problem solving. And new concepts are introduced on pattern recognition and problem solving, and learners are given ample opportunities to use their own patterns to create beaded bracelets. And when you look at a progression in grade 3, it is revision of what was done in grade 2. They'll continue with encoding and decoding that was done in grade 2, and they'll continue following instructions to make patterns, and learners are given tasks to work on based on the content that they shall have learned. Let's move on to the next slide, please. The next slide talks to algorithms and coding. Again, I'm not going to focus on this because the pattern is more or less the same. May we move on to the next slide, slide 51, please, or slide 50. And the slide is on robotics skills. And here we are saying this will be done in week 4. And this will be done in week 3. I'm sorry, colleagues. This will be done in week 3. That is your algorithms and coding, and time allocation for this is 30 minutes. That is for your grade 2 and 2 hours for grade 3. And you will go through the progression as you interact with the presentation. And algorithm still continues in week 3. We are saying we're focusing, our time allocation is 30 minutes, and it is revision of a grade 2 that was done in the previous week. And we continue, we are strengthening, and we continue with our progression, and we are also integrating within the strengths. When you look at the strengths, some of the strengths, they share a common content. So that also needs to be taken into cognizance. That is integration within the strengths. May we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, the next slide is on robotic skills. Again, the same applies. You look at the progression as well as the increase in complexity of the strengths. Like I've indicated, let us not pay much attention to that, colleagues. The approach is the same on your overviews. May we move to our lesson plans, please? Slide 57. You see the slides are the same. The structuring is the same. You've got your time allocation. You've got your week number. You've got your topic focus. You've got your content for grade 2 as well as content for grade 3. Thank you, Estelle. Then on the lesson plans, we are also going to focus on lesson plans for grade R and grade 1. And can I also indicate that the structure, the features of the lesson plan, colleagues, is the same across the grades. So here we are saying the lesson plans for the grades are developed according to weeks, as indicated in the ATPs. On the lesson plans, specific grade, date, and temp are clearly indicated. Only one topic / content area. Remember, I said in some instances it will be a strength, but we are talking about the same thing. Only one topic, content area is taught per week. And remember, we have cited an example with pattern recognition and problem solving. It will be done in week 1, week 2, and week 3, and your algorithms is week 4 and 5. As much as we are saying per week, other content areas will be repeated in different weeks. And the content areas, that is the 5 knowledge strands for coding and robotics, are also taught. And under each and every content area, you'll see there is, as indicated in the ATPs, there is a specific content that needs to be delivered on that particular week and for that particular day. The lesson plan is divided into 5 sections. And these sections are taught according to specified time allocation. Now you will see when we get to slide 60, when we now focus on the specific contents of the lesson plan. May we move on to the next page, please? In the next slide, slide 59, please. As I've indicated, this will be unpacked in slide 60. Up to slide 66. Now, I just want us to take note of the following regarding the lesson plans, colleagues. As much as we are focusing on the contents, let us make note of the following, that a carefully planned lesson plan allows teachers to teach with more confidence and a better understanding. So when we include this content, we need to have that in mind to say a carefully planned lesson plan will enable the teacher to teach with confidence and better understanding. And again, a written lesson plan provides a step-by-step guide on what needs to be taught, and it will inform the teacher on the activities that learners need to attend to. Now, the contents here, we are saying the lesson plan will have your topic, and the topic will be your strength, as I've indicated, or your content area. Then your lesson plan will have specific aims. We'll unpack that when we get to slide 60. It will have the learning objectives. It will have educator and learner activity. It will have your resources. It will have your assessment, and it will have your lesson reflection. I'm also suggesting that also in coding and robotics, the school-based project management team coordinator should make an effort to at least quality assure the lesson plans so that justice is done in terms of coding and robotics deliverables. Otherwise, if we don't keep track of what is happening in the classroom as the coordinator at a respective school, the delivery of coding on robotics will be compromised. Remember, as a coordinator, you automatically becomes the a beneficiary, or rather the accounting officer for implementation of coding and robotics. So purpose it in your heart that you will verify the lesson plans, and you'll make inputs, and you'll also double check with us where you need support, right? Now let's focus on the lesson plan contents. We are saying here, you need to include educator and learner activity. That is what is expected. What is expected of the teacher? What is it that the teacher will be focusing on when planning a particular topic? Here we use the ATPs to inform our planning and preparation, daily planning and preparation. The learner activity, of course, it will be in line with what the teacher will be teaching, and the assessment, I'm not going to say anything about that. Estelle will deliberate more on the assessment part. Then the learning objectives also, we need to identify, specify the resources, and you also need to make use of our EAC, that is your English across curriculum document, your new words, new concepts, pre-knowledge, what is it that the learners know, and towards what is it that you want them to learn. Lesson reflection. Under lesson reflection, you are going to indicate on date of completion. Remember that some of the strengths will be delivered, or according to the ATPs, must be delivered within a week or two. So when you reflect, you're going to check whether you managed to teach that particular strength according to the time as indicated on your policy, as well as have you covered everything that was supposed to be covered, and you are able to check what is it that needs to be reinforced or strengthened. Then on your lesson plans, you also need to sign those lesson plans. But like I've indicated earlier, I would love for us to also adopt this approach of ensuring that the coding and robotics coordinator at respective schools also append their signature so that we can ensure implementation and accountability, if that is the appropriate word to use. May we move on to the next slide, please? Now, it is not that much different from what we have indicated. The next slide, that is slide 62, please, Estelle. Slide 62 talks to the lesson plan structure. We are saying here, Each lesson is planned for a specific term and for a specific week. Now, we are going to focus on term 1, week 1 of the lesson plan. Here you are going to indicate your topic. Remember, we have said for term 1, our focus will be pattern recognition and problem solving. And you indicate week number, and in this case, it will be, we are teaching this for week 1, and it is going to continue to week 2 until week 3, the same strength, and you indicate your grade there, because now I've started an example with a pattern recognition and problem solving. It will be grade R and grade 1. Then your term, it will be term 1, knowing very well that we are in term 4, but for obvious reasons, we are now delivering our term 1 content under robotics. May we move on to the next slide, please? This is the slide that I was talking to say now it will unpack your specific aims. May you please go back to the slide, Estelle? Thank you. Specific aims. What exactly are we focusing on when we talk about the specific aim? Here we're saying specific aims outlines the key steps to fulfill objectives that addresses critical need, and they must be clear, achievable, and directly related to the content. And where do we get this? We go back to our draft and we go back to our ATPs to inform us on specific aims. Then computational thinking. Remember when Estelle was talking about the little house and she spoke about the foundations. This is where the foundation comes. And here now we're talking about the methodology. Computational thinking. We are focusing on the pattern recognition, algorithm design, abstraction, and decomposition. Now, when you go back to your ATPs, this is where these skills are broken down clearly. Then technological process, also she indicated the technological process that you cannot go through any of the stage in isolation. The technological process depend on each other. Investigation, yes, you can do investigation, but there is no how you can focus on design, make, and evaluate independently. They must be done together. And then communication. Communication applies across all these steps under technological process. So when you do your planning, colleagues, we urge you to please make sure that you interact with your ATPs and you interact with your draft so that you can see exactly where do you use computational thinking and how is computational thinking related to your algorithm and how technological process also interacts with your computational thinking content, right? Then learning objectives. We're done with our learning objectives. Let us move to the next slide, please. We are saying here again, the same as your specific objectives. We are saying here they must be clear and learners must know what they are learning so that they can be able to demonstrate their understanding. Meaning, when we deliver each and every content, when we focus on each and every topic, we need to first explain what the topic is all about. We also need to first explain what the content is all about and why are the learners engaging in that. What is it that we want to achieve? Then also under the learning objectives, we are saying we need to also identify the resources. The resources always help us to make the lesson more meaningful. And one other thing that we also want to emphasize with you colleagues, let us not assume that because they seem to be very knowledgeable in terms of the technological dynamics, then we don't have to introduce the resources. Every time when we give the learners a resource, let us first introduce the resource, let us mediate the resource, let us tell them the purpose of the resource, and let us indicate to the learners what is it that we want to achieve on that particular activity when making use of that particular resource. We realize that sometimes we take it for granted that learners know these things. And also the learning objectives, we also need to take note of the new words, new vocabulary that is going to be introduced. The new concepts that are going to be introduced should be introduced and also should be thoroughly explained. The same process that we're going to take when we introduce the resources, we need to do the same with the new words, not taking for granted pre-knowledge of the learners, what the learners know from previous grades grade, as well as some of the things that they are learning informally. Those needs to be recognized, and they need to be used effectively in order to make learning meaningful for the particular learner. May we move on to the learning objectives under educators' activity, please? Then we are saying here, this is the body of the lesson where the teacher will teach the concept with examples and explanations that are given in the lesson plan. The teacher should be able to introduce the learner to the work or activities planned for the day. Meaning, since we are talking about the lesson plan, it means prior preparation is going to make this particular item under lesson plan a success. We prepare, we introduce, and we allow learners to work on activities as planned. And preparation, it means what? Preparation, it means everything that we're going to need when delivering that particular concept or that particular topic will be easily accessible for all, to all the learners. Right. Then learners' activity. This is what learners need to do. Now, learners' activity cannot be something different from what the educator activity was alluding to. It's continuity. We teach, we teach, we teach. And the learner activity must also be user-friendly to the resources that the teacher shall have identified. Now, can I also steal 1 minute and indicate to you, colleagues, that let us refrain from, some of us had that mindset of saying, when you talk about coding on robotics, you need to think about technological gadget. There are basic, we've spoken about the cards, the coding cards. There are basic resources that we can use, that we have at our disposal to make learning meaningful when delivering coding and robotics. Remember, we even make mention of the brushes. Learners can make use of the brushes. We continued talking about the paints. These are the things that we have at our schools. So in our schools, it is just a matter of us planning our lessons very well, us checking what is it that needs to be delivered according to the ATPs for the particular week. And by doing that, then we'll be able to identify relevant resources, and our delivery of coding and robotics in a grade R to grade 3 classroom will be a success. Then the aspect under assessment, we are saying here, assessment here, we are stating clearly how, as educators, you're going to assess your learners, whether is the assessment formal or informal. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to deliberate much on that, but I just wanted us to always remember that assessment is another aspect, is another feature, and in our lesson plans, we cannot afford to compromise this part. So when you look at our ATPs, when you look at the flow of your overview from grade to grade, when you look at the weeks that we need to deliver the coding and robotics, it is not that much different from what we've been doing ever since within the department across the subject. 10 weeks for your ATPs, different weeks for each and every strand, and your ATPs are nicely unpacked. And we encourage you to please interact with the draft document. Thank you, Estelle. Thank you, Program Director. I think this brings us to the end. And yeah, your reflection there. This is the last slide. And you reflect what went well, what did not go well, and what is it that needs to be changed. This is like a national anthem. We always reflect as the last feature, then you attach your signature, and the coordinator also needs to validate that as well. And when we say please quality assure, we are actually referring to going through the content, not that the lesson plan is available, but as the coordinator interact with the content that is included in the lesson plan, whether it is in line with that week's deliverables, whether it is in line with that particular strand's deliverables. And by so doing, I think that will help us do justice to a curriculum delivery on coding and robotics. This brings me to the end of my part of presentation. Thank you, Estelle, for helping. Over to you.
Thank you, Tsidi.
I'm
going
before
to
you take over. Before you take
Yes.
over, Estelle, I am looking at time. We're at 15:40 now. Remember, we scheduled till
Yes.
4 o'clock. Will you be able to summarize? And
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Then
I've
carry on.
already decided to do that.
Okay, thanks so much.
I'm not going to go into detail with assessment because the basic assessment principles that apply to all our other subjects apply to assessment. So you will have the slides to look at and to read through, but you will see as I quickly go through them, the basic principles are the same. I will only pause with one or two slides. I just want to indicate this will be a full subject, so it will be assessed like a full subject, and we will be expected to record and report on coding and robotics as we do with all our other subjects. So I'm just going to go through, I'm not going to read all these slides. I'm going to pause at slide number 72 to just highlight something there. But please go through these slides when you have time at school. Right. If we look at the forms of assessment, oh no, this is not the one that I'm looking for. Okay. If we look at the grade 3, the formal tasks, these will be your mark allocations for the specific tasks. I also wanted to just highlight that we will have our formal assessment as well as our informal assessment with coding and robotics. And then I just want to get to the slide where we will give you some ideas. We'll use our normal rating codes as with all our other subjects. And then these are the different forms of evidence you can use just with all your other subjects as well. The learners' books, worksheets, posters, etc. for your record keeping. And then the teachers will also have record sheets like they have with all their other subjects. And these are the requirements for the record sheets. I'm not going to read through it. And then just as with our other subjects, you need to report on coding and robotics using the levels in foundation phase. And we also need our contact with our parents as with all our other subjects. I think I've missed one of the slides that I wanted to highlight, but I'm not going to go back to that because I know that our time is very little. And I would like to thank you for listening to our part of the presentation. I'm handing back to Pepi.
Thank you very much, Estelle, and thank you very much, Tidi. And we thank you for the comprehensive and a wonderful presentation. Colleagues, what I have picked up with the foundation phase presentation, it was very comprehensive, and most of the things are generic and they apply in both foundation phase as well as the senior phase. So I'm going to hand over now to our senior phase presenter, Mr. Matlala, to allow colleagues to have questions and for us to clarify some of the things that they are not sure about. It's 15:44 now. I'm not sure how long will you take to just emphasize on things that were not touched by the foundation phase.
I'll do my best, leadership.
Okay.
I think they will have enough time to ask clarity-seeking questions.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Matlala, and over to you.
Thank you. Colleagues, good afternoon. I hope you can see the slide to that side. I cannot see you. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can continue.
Yes, thank you, the two sisters, Estella and Sidi. You have presented wonderfully. Indeed, your presentation was so informative. I wish I was in grade R or grade 1, whereby I'm going to be taught coding and robotic, not Sehwahwa or Vugamfana. This was very informative. Colleagues, the grade 7, whatever the colleagues have alluded with, since from slide number 4, if you could go through that slide number 4 of Estelle until the last slides, that's slide number 22. The information is the same with grade 7. And from slide number 30 to slide number 45 of Sister CD, it is also the same. And she alluded that lesson plans are the same across from grade R to all the grades. Now, the slides that is in front of you is the ATPs and topics for grade 7. The topics we can see that is internet and e-communication, that it has been thoroughly explained by our two colleagues, then algorithm and coding, then application skills, robotic skills. These have been alluded and thoroughly explained. I think you understood them very well. Then under internet and e-communication in grade 7, term 1, you are going to look at augmented reality, real world applications, and augmented reality. This is there, and it will come with the lesson, and the lesson plan will go sequentially, step by step. That is going to help you a lot. You are not going to suffer, but before you go to the classroom, please go through the lesson plans and make some notes so that you can really own that lesson plan. Then algorithm and coding, we are going to look at comparison between lines-based coding and blocks-based on coding. Then we are going to look at flowcharts, start, stop, proceed, and a flow. That is going to be also on the lesson plan, and you need to really acquaint yourself with these lesson plans, colleagues, before you go to the classroom. And augmented reality project also, it is there on that topic. Then when we go to application, this is term 1, colleagues. We know we are in term 4, but this you need to try and deliver on them during this term in the 30 minutes that you are going to find out from your timetable. Our suggestion is that I cannot say anything, but we know policy is clear, notional time is clear, and remember we are dealing with recovery plan. So we are suggesting that you look at your breaks, your short break and your long break. Then if you can steal little time there, you can come up with the 30 minutes, though we know that this subject is a practical subject. Then topic number 3, application skills. You're going to look at introduction to HTML, that is H stands for head, body, paragraphs, line breaks, and the titles, and spreadsheet application and data type. Then going to look at the robotic skills, cut, drawing, CD and line tools, rectangle tools, dimension tools, extraction tools, robotic and the potentiometer. Then this is term 2 that will be done perhaps next year if we have a fully fleshed timetable. That will give us about 2 hours as it is drafted in the draft document. Sister Pepe, I think I've done justice. I need to give our colleagues a time to ask questions, clarity sequence question in the last 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matlala, and thank you very much for that outline of Term 1 content in grade 7. Just to alleviate fears from our colleagues, remember that each school is allocated the support team, and you are free to communicate whatever that you are struggling with, so that we are able to support you. Now, I've noted one hand. This is time for us to ask questions, and wherever we did not understand, I've just noted one hand. Colleagues, it's now your time. Whilst you're waiting for other hands, let me give time to Nobela so to ask a question or to have your input. Nobela?
Hello, ma'am. It's not a question. Ma'am, may we please have the register too?
Oh, it's just a register. Okay,
Yes,
then.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm posting it right away. Okay.
It's okay, Ms. Sabonga.
Okay. Any other hand?
Yes, we have a hand from Mr. Pasha. I think his hand is up.
Mr. Pasha?
All right, ma'am. I wanted to ask in regards to the subject, like, are we going to assess it like any other subject? It will be also captured in the SASM, or we only capture the marks and then we see the reflection on how the learner performs. Like, how does it work?
Okay. For this year, for 2021, our Director General has given us the concession to not to formally assess the subject because of the teething problems due of the pilot. But from next year, we will be required to record the subject on SASMs. But even this year, the subject is there on SASMs that I've checked. I think it answers you, Mr. Pasha. Follow up?
Yes, it answers me. I also have another question, ma'am. In regards to the lesson plans, how am I able to develop the lesson plans? Or you will provide us with the lesson plans that we will follow, that will cater for everyone?
Okay, immediately after this meeting, I'll be emailing the scripted lesson plans, but as indicated by presenters, please interact with them, make notes, make them your own, and yeah. So immediately after this meeting, I will be emailing the scripted lesson plans as well as the draft policy documents, but some of us already have the draft policies.
And also these presentations will be emailed to all who register.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Matlala. Any other question?
Let's see.
Any other hands?
No hands, nothing on the chat box.
Okay. We still have about 6 minutes. Colleagues, you know, we have put time aside so that, you know, we open this communication with you. Please make use of this opportunity. Ask a question, you know, share your experience or share your challenges so that we are able to assist.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can talk about time. Where are you going to take to get this, especially the grade 7? Where are you going to get this 30 minutes for you to be able to teach these learners coding and robotic?
Okay, I also saw Mr. Pasha's hand, but maybe before I give him the platform, colleagues, just to reiterate what presenters have indicated in terms of time allocation, if you go through your draft policy documents, you will notice that grade R1 and 2 the time allocation is 1 hour per week. Grade 3 and grade 7, the time allocation is 2 hours per week. So due to the challenges that the pilot has experienced, now head office has recommended that let us at least find time to start with the pilot, even if it is 30 minutes, but we are not limiting you to 30 minutes. If you can find an hour, we'll be grateful. For grade 7, if you have 2 hours, we'll be grateful. And also just to emphasize that if you have not reworked the timetable, please, as you'll be giving feedback, please indicate that in the meeting it was indicated that schools have to rework their timetables to accommodate coding and robotics. There are suggestions that you will find in the presentations, but there's nothing stopping you from putting something on the table that will work for your school. Thank you, Mr. Pasha.
All right, ma'am. My question was in regards to the superiors that are reluctant to squeeze in robotics within the timetable. Like, how do we work around that? I was asking in regards to that.
I think that will be resolved by the support team when they visit the school. And luckily, you are one of the people that are supporting your school is myself. So I think that we can, at some point, we'll be able to reach, to find a solution for the school to be able to implement.
All right, thanks.
Any other hand?
No hand, but the people from this school, they are saying they're struggling with the link to register. Perhaps if they can send us a WhatsApp note so that we can send the link on the WhatsApp, they might be able to register.
Okay. Yeah, I think Sharita has already given the solution there, that they should just copy the link and open Chrome, paste it there, and it will open. Normally it does.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Okay. We still have 2 minutes. We are wrapping up, colleagues. It's your opportunity. Now, colleagues, maybe let us use the 2 minutes that remaining for us to chant a way forward. Number 1, we have already spoken about implementation. Colleagues, we were giving support for schools to put systems in place for the pilot to start.
Yes.
In term 4, evidence of work done in the class will be needed. Already we have schools that are identified to be visited by DBE, and they want that evidence that at least something has happened in the classroom. For the subject, if we can just have 170, okay, towards the end of the year now, if we can have 172 pages or 132 pages, at least for term 1 ATP, start with something. We will see how far we push with the term 1 ATP, but at least let it be evident that the pilot has started. So from this meeting, there will be no excuses for us to say we did not know what to do. But in addition to this, support teams will still be supporting schools. So we need to go to the classrooms, find time, and teach the subject. And it has to be evident that the subject is taught. That is the way forward. And then number 2, its monitoring and support. The district project management team will continue supporting schools because we have already started. We will continue supporting schools and also monitoring the implementation. But also the provincial team as well as DBE will support and monitor the implementation. Normally in term 4, we say, you know, school visits and monitoring subsides. But with coding and robotics, we need to prepare our schools, be ready that we will be supported and monitored by head office and DBE. And unfortunately, when the communication comes, it comes short notice. So sometimes we get an email and we just forward the email as is, and it only gives us maybe about 2 or 3 days before the visit. So please stay aware that visits will still be conducted in term 4, support and monitoring visits. I think that is that with regards to the schools that are only full ICT schools that did not receive the coding, the robotics kit. Start with the concepts, because if you look at that term 1 ATP is theory first. Start with those concepts, teach. At least let us find something in learners' books. We will also, through our CES, request to put this in the principal's presentation so that you are also supported by principals when you give feedback and when it is time for you to implement the project. I think it's about time for us now to close the meeting. I'm not sure if there is any other thing that you would like to say before we close. Anything from the PMT members?
I just want to make colleagues aware that it will be on-site visit. So if we come to your school, don't say we did not send any memo. Please open the gate. We are just there to support, not as fault finders. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Matlala. Anyone from the PMT? Okay, colleagues, I think we can now close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. I know, colleagues, for us to start with this project, it's a bit difficult, but once we have started, you will notice how interesting it is. And please let us not deny these kids, the fun that the fun that they will have with the subject. And who knows, this is the new subject. Also, us as teachers, you don't know what opportunities it will bring to your life. In terms of your career. So, and thank you so much, and thank you for your willingness, and thank you for availing yourselves. From now on, let us not just say it's term 4, let us roll our sleeves and go to the classes and teach. Whenever you get frustrated, give us a call, give the PMT member a call, or drop an email. I always email you. You can reply to one of the emails, drop an email. We will be there to support you. In those few words, colleagues, thank you very much once more, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Sister Pepe. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peps.
Thank you.
Thank you, team. Thank you, team. Well presentation. Well done, colleagues.
Thank you, Sister Monica. Yes, Monica.
Thanks, Ntate Maitlela, for the link. Yo.
Yeah, this is technology,
Thanks,
sister. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.